widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made, The Godfather, starring Marlon Brando and Al Pacino.
Marlon Brando. I think my grandmother had a poster of him in her bedroom.
When she was, what, a teenager?
It must have been more recent if
wait,
I
if
recall.
you were alive, your adult grandmother had a... wait, when was... Okay, you have to explain.
She also had one of Elvis Stoico. Who was a Canadian figure skater. A signed one. Okay, anyways.
Yeah, Marlon Brando.
It's a really old movie.
So Marlon Brando was like the heartthrob of the 19...
Grandma knew what's up.
50s maybe?
Yeah.
Like A Streetcar Named Desire. He's really famous for being, a lot of people call him like a method actor.
Didn't he smoke a lot? I just have this image.
Maybe.
I don't know. Okay, sorry.
I guess a lot of characters just smoked in movies at the time. But he's sort of known for being this actor that like really like embodied the emotion of the character. I think he rejected this label, but the idea of that, like, you know, they talk about Daniel Day-Lewis. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, like he really takes on the role.
Yeah, and like even to the point where like he stays in character while they're not filming. So like if he's playing Abraham Lincoln in a movie, he's walking around the set like he's Abraham Lincoln.
Talking to his wife like, what's for dinner?
Brando has a similar reputation that he would put himself in the mindset of the character, and he was actually kind of known for like not really knowing his lines for certain movies, but he was in the mindset of the character, so he would just sort of
ad-lib.
Yeah, he would improvise, and a lot of people consider him one of the greatest actors ever. He's actually a fascinating guy in a lot of ways. So actually, he won an Oscar.
Is he still alive?
No, he died a while ago. Okay. He won the Best Actor Oscar for The Godfather.
Oh.
But refused to accept it.
What?
Sent a Native American woman to the Oscars to go up on stage and say he wasn't accepting it because he was protesting the way Native Americans were portrayed in American movies.
Is he American or Canadian?
Yeah, no, he's American.
He's American. Wow.
But he chose, like, instead of accepting an Oscar, he made this sort of political statement, which now would, I think, be totally...
Yeah.
People, I think, are more expecting of celebrities to make these sort of statements. But back then, people were like...
What was
there
the
were
response?
like people on the stage who were like booing and like...
Oh my
like
God,
it was like
wow.
a really bad scene, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, a
didn't know that.
fascinating guy. Like he's got some problematic... He's been accused of things as well that aren't good, but he also was a pretty like...
progressive, sort of.
In some ways politically when it came
Yeah.
to like the rights of certain people anyway.
Okay,
He's not
cool.
necessarily known for treating women very well.
Oh, well.
Allegedly.
We do not stand part of him.
Okay.
Anyways.
The Godfather.
I was going to say, I think I stand him, and then, like, no.
The Godfather is a movie about family. So
Fathers. Let me guess.
Specifically godfathers and godsons. No.
Is it biblical?
The movie starts at a wedding. The wedding of, so we have Don Vito Corleone. He's the
Is this
Godfather.
like The Sopranos?
In the sense that it is about American Italian
Mobs.
crime families, yes.
Okay.
He is the head of the Corleone crime family.
He's the man
A
in
lot
charge.
of influence in New York. And it's on the day of his daughter's wedding, and the movie opens up with this really good shot of like panning out from him. He's got a cat, and
A cat?
he does have a cat. And a cat just wandered on set, so there's a scene early in the movie where he just has a cat in his lap.
I like that.
Anyway, so this man at his wedding is saying, you know, I'm an immigrant to America, trying to raise a family and live the American dream here. And my daughter one day was going out with this American boy, and he gave her alcohol and tried to take advantage of her. And, you know, she refused, and he assaulted her. And he goes, we tried to do the right thing. We went to the police. We went through the court system, and the courts gave them a suspended sentence, which basically means they just walked out of court that day. And the young man who assaulted my daughter just laughed at me as I was walking out of the courtroom. So he goes, Don Corleone, I tried to do the right thing here, but I'm coming to you. I want you to give me justice in this scenario.
To murder.
So right away, this sort of establishes like what this sort of Godfather really means to the people in his community, right? It is this sense that, yes, it is a criminal,
Enterprise.
crime family, but the idea is is the corruption of organized crime all that different from the corruption of politicians and all that, when really it's just a different system of justice?
So he offers alternative justice.
And when the man says, I want you to kill that boy for me, he goes, that's not justice, because that boy didn't actually kill your daughter.
So they assaulted him instead?
So they probably just beat him. I don't know if it's ever really resolved what exactly happens.
Oh,
but
you don't find out what they did?
I think in the book they tell you. I don't remember.
Are they very much an eye for an eye?
It's a very like old school, like sort of Sicilian, idea of justice, let's say.
I don't know what that means. Is that eye for an eye?
I don't really know what that means. Okay. Anyway, so it's the wedding. Godfather also has a son, a nephew, a godson, who's in the movie business. And he's kind of getting old. He's not getting the movie roles he's used to. So he says, Godfather, could you help me get a role in a movie? There's this producer, and he just doesn't want me in the movie because he's mad I slept with like one of this girl in the business he likes or something. I don't know. So he sends his lawyer out to talk to the movie producer and try to convince him to have his godson in the movie. And so the lawyer is like trying to convince him that to let him star in the movie. Hey, we can do you some favors, And the producer's like, you think you can intimidate me? You think you can like try to muscle me into doing this? Like, no way. And so the next day the producer wakes up. The producer has a bunch of horses at his estate. And this is a very famous scene in movie history, is the producer wakes up the next day and like there's blood on his sheets. And you're like, what happened? Like, did they get him in the night? And he pulls the sheet back, and there's just a head of one of his horses in the bed. And he goes, ah!
What does that achieve?
It's the horse's head. It's a symbol.
It sounds like unnecessary animal cruelty to me.
Well, yes, that is a terrible thing. The horse didn't do anything wrong.
I don't like The Godfather. I think he's bad things.
Okay, so the main conflict in The Godfather is there's other crime families in New York, right? And we're talking about an era where you're starting to see some harder drugs coming onto the scene, narcotics. And some of the crime families want to start selling them and using their political influence and corrupt police officers to give them protection, allowing them to make money by selling these drugs. And one of the other crime bosses comes to the Godfather and asks for his, sort of involvement in this enterprise and to partner up. And the Godfather says, no, like that's against my morals. I don't want to engage with that.
In drugs?
In those sort of hard drugs, yeah.
That's against his morals?
That's against
Interesting. Okay, then.
So it results in the other head of one of the other crime families trying to kill the Godfather. And they shoot him. But he somehow survives.
Thanks to drugs.
Thanks to the doctors at the hospital. Like
his own doctors? Was he like that kind of crime boss? He goes to his undercover hospital?
No, I think he's just at a hospital.
But if he
they try to kill him again at the hospital.
How?
Well, because that crime family actually has an inside man at the police station, a pretty high up guy. So one of the Godfather's sons, Michael, Al Pacino, they find out who it is. They arrange to have a meeting because they want a truce. But they find out where the meeting's going to take place ahead of time. They hide a gun in the bathroom. And Michael goes, hey, can I excuse myself? Goes to the bathroom, gets a gun, and he shoots the police officer.
The police officer.
So he has to flee.
Okay.
He leaves the country. He goes to Sicily while there's fighting going on between these crime families.
Where's the Godfather?
The Godfather eventually comes home. He leaves the hospital, but there's a lot of conflict, right? And the Godfather's oldest son, Sonny Corleone, gets murdered as well. So the Godfather...
Is anyone surprised by that?
Well, no, because there's all this fighting going on. So they call a meeting of the heads of all the five families to bring them
Sounds
together.
Sounds like Lord of the Rings. The five families.
And Don Corleone says, I want to call a truce. We need to end all this fighting.
Well, he's saying that now.
And all this violence. Well, there's killing going on in both directions.
Uh-huh.
And he says, I promise I won't get vengeance for the murder of my oldest son if we can achieve peace here today.
Uh-huh.
But if anything happens to my younger son, Michael, if he should get accidentally shot by a police officer, or should he get in a car accident, or if he was struck down by a bolt of lightning, I'm going to blame some of the people in this room, and that I cannot forgive.
Mm-hmm. So what happens to Michael?
So what happens is the Godfather himself has given his word not to seek revenge. But what happens at the end of the movie, spoiler alert,
Michael seeks revenge.
is that Michael becomes the new Godfather. And on the day that he is being, the day they are baptizing his sister Connie's child, and he is being appointed the godfather of that child through that sort of religious ceremony of renouncing Satan and renouncing evil, he has sort of orchestrated the murder of all the leaders of the other crime families in the city in, parallel to this sort of religious process going on. And the movie ends with him basically cementing himself as the new godfather after his father, passes away from old age.
So basically it's just a story of history repeating itself. And that this conflict never does any good. And everyone ends up dying. So don't fight.
I mean, the broader story, like this is the first movie I just explained to you.
The first movie?
Yeah, so there is a second and
God.
third movie.
So is it a trilogy?
It is a trilogy.
Is there 9 of them? Like,
although
Star Wars?
notoriously, most people agree they made the third movie mostly to make money, and some people involved needed money. But the broader storyline is a tragic story about how for people where everything is really about family and the meaning of family, Michael Corleone, ultimately does sort of die alone. He ends up alone. He ends up, through the decisions he makes, actually alienating himself from his family at the end of the day.
Sad. So it's not a family model we should aspire to.
No, certainly not. But it's one of like the best made films ever by who is widely regarded Francis Ford Coppola as one of the best filmmakers ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, at a time where he was just like super prolific. So he made The Godfather, The Conversation with Gene Hackman, and The Godfather Part 2 in the span of like 6 years, which are like, I think 3 of the best movies ever made.
And that's your favorite movie? The Godfather.
The Godfather
Part 1?
is one of my favorite movies.
And
Part 1 and Part 2 are both. It's like having 2 kids. Like, do you really choose between them?
No, never.
Never. It's like Menchier's Eye. Like, what's your favorite? No, the first 2 Godfather films are. Even the third is good by most standards. Just when you compare it to those first 2 movies, it doesn't seem as good.
Okay.
All right, Cristine, have I convinced you to watch The Godfather with me?
How old is it
That's
again?
a long pause.